for. We want this president to focus on making our lives better, not picking fights that we don't want. And if there is going to be a war, it's Congress's job to do that, Katie. That's in the Constitution.
I don't think it's a
that
minority
most
opinion.
Americans want out of. That's just according to
Well, we'll
objective
be out
polling.
soon.
You can have your own opinions. But unfortunately, the facts don't care about your opinion, Katie. Let's stick to the facts.
In this video, we are going to watch News Nation host Katie Pavlich get absolutely schooled in what I can only describe as a masterclass debate with Ezra Levin, the organizer of the No Kings protest. We will watch him time and time again educate her on the Constitution, and she just goes dumbfounded, cannot even respond. Now look, the No Kings protest is happening this weekend. Over 3,000 events across the country. This is massive. This is people standing up and saying, no, we do not bow to authoritarian nonsense. And Katie Pavlich, bless her heart, tries to challenge this man on constitutional rights. The audacity. I need you to understand what we're about to witness here. This is about democracy. This is about the First Amendment. This is about calling out overreach when we see it. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button because this one is going to be special.
All right, millions of people are expected to take to the streets at a more than 3,000 events this weekend as part of tomorrow's No Kings protest. Organizers say Trump wants to rule over us as a tyrant, and tomorrow's flagship event is happening in Minneapolis, where Jane Fonda, Bruce Springsteen, and Bernie Sanders, and also Tim Walz are slated to appear. The usual suspects. Joining us now is Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible and one of the organizers behind the No Kings protest. Ezra, great to see you. Thanks for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Great to be talking, Katie.
Thank you. So, first of all, let's start off with the name of these protests, No Kings. Here in America, we don't have kings. We have presidents elected by the people. So what's up with that title?
Yeah, look, I agree. We should just have presidents. And you can disagree with presidents. I disagree with plenty of presidents of both parties. But what we don't accept in America are rulers who try to trample on our constitutional rights. I think one of the beautiful things about tomorrow is this is Americans standing up in blue states, in red states, in purple states, in rural areas, in urban areas, in just about every nook and cranny of this country. 95% of Americans are within about an hour of their local No Kings protests. And what they're doing, Katie, is exercising their First Amendment rights. What a thing to celebrate in this country, that we have First Amendment rights that we can actually exercise.
Yeah, First Amendment's great. And in a country without a king, we actually have the First Amendment and can go exercise our rights appropriately. If it's not about having actual king, as we can agree on, but about policies implemented by our president, were the No Kings protests, for example, when the COVID-19 vaccine mandate was issued by the Biden administration, one that forced Americans to take the vaccine under duress or to lose their jobs? Many people were fired until the Supreme Court struck it down. I didn't see you guys out there during that administration.
So what we're responding to right now more than anything else is two things. One, it is a secret police force that is terrorizing American communities, and in some cases killing Americans, as they did in the Twin Cities. We had ICE murder Renee Good, and we had Border Patrol murder Alex Preddy in the streets while they were exercising their First Amendment rights. That's one thing that we're seeing these millions and millions of people responding to. And the second thing that's driving a lot of turnout right now is this unpopular, illegal, unconstitutional war with Iran that Trump picked, even though members of his own party didn't want it. Certainly independents and Democrats don't want it. And everybody wants it to end because it's driving up our prices and costing Americans just billions of dollars. That's something that somebody other than a president does. That's something that an authoritarian tries to do. Go over the Constitution to pick fights with foreign countries that his own constituents don't want.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Iran has been picking a fight with the United States for 47 years. They've killed thousands of Americans. They fund Hezbollah, which of course was it's the largest terrorist organization in the world, killed more Americans before 9/11 than any other terrorist organization in the entire globe. You had October 7th, where dozens of Americans were murdered by Hamas, which is funded by Iran. Missiles shot at bases all over the Middle East trying to kill American soldiers. So that's why the president is taking this on. Also, they're trying to get a nuclear weapon, and of course hold the entire Middle East hostage. But I want to ask you this about what you said about the so-called secret police. I assume you're talking about immigration and customs enforcement. Your group is all about making sure that you can take on ICE. You have ICE out rallies as well. I understand the issues with Alex Preddy and Renee Good. There are ongoing investigations with what happened there. But generally speaking, when it comes to immigration and customs enforcement, we've talked to the father of a young woman named Katie last night, whose daughter was killed by an illegal alien inside the country. Sheridan Gorman is a Loyola University student who was murdered by a Venezuelan illegal alien in the country who had been arrested before, let out by Chicago. The list goes on and on. Stephanie Minter in Virginia, again, murdered at a bus stop by an illegal alien. So do you think we shouldn't have any immigration and customs enforcement inside the country to make sure that violent illegal criminals are not murdering Americans in the streets?
Right off the bat, Katie Pavlich hits him with, "We don't have kings in America," like she's caught him in some clever trap. And Ezra just calmly explains, "Yeah, that's the point. We're trying to keep it that way. The protest is about preventing authoritarian overreach, not claiming we already have a literal monarch." How did she miss that? And then, oh, here we go. She pivots to COVID vaccine mandates. Classic deflection. We're talking about ICE killing people in the streets, and she wants to relitigate 2021. The Supreme Court already struck that down, Katie. The system worked. Meanwhile, we have credible reports of people dying during immigration enforcement, and she wants to talk about vaccines from 5 years ago. But here's what gets me. Ezra brings up the Iran situation, and he's absolutely right. Congress is supposed to declare war. That's not some progressive talking point, that's Article 1 of the Constitution. The document these people claim to worship until it becomes inconvenient. And watch how she responds to his point about ICE. She immediately starts listing tragic crimes committed by undocumented individuals. And those cases are genuinely horrific. Nobody disputes that. But that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about accountability when enforcement goes wrong. Two different conversations entirely. She's not debating him. She's running away from his actual points by changing the subject every 30 seconds. It's a rhetorical escape hatch, and he's not letting her take it.
Can I respond to both points that you raised? You raised a whole bunch of interesting points about Iran. I think this is exactly why Congress has the power to declare war. I would love a debate about whether there should be military action in Iran. Again, it is Congress's job, not the president's, Congress's job to declare war. Trump himself is calling this a war. He is acting unconstitutionally in waging this war. This is, again, a war that the vast majority of Americans did not want, that the majority of Americans do not want to continue paying for. We want this president to focus on making our lives better, not picking fights that we don't want. And if there is going to be a war, it's Congress's job to do that, Katie. That's in the Constitution.
The Congress
so
hasn't declared a war since the 1940s. And I assume you had the same complaints when Barack Obama was also droning Americans overseas, and he was declaring war on places like Libya, which was a war that dragged out a lot longer than what's happening in Iran. And I would say also that the president is improving the lives of Americans by making sure that we are not held hostage by a nuclear Iran. But I want to ask you one more question before we get going.
To that point, that's a fine opinion to have, Katie. It's a minority opinion. You are in the minority holding that opinion. It's an unpopular war that most Americans want out of. That's just according to objective polling. You can have your own opinions. But unfortunately, the facts don't care about your opinion, Katie. Let's stick to the facts.
The facts are exactly what I just talked about. But before you go, I just want to ask you this question. You talked a whole lot about how Chuck Schumer is a weak leader. There's been a lot of talk about how the Democratic Party is now shifting to the left. You're having this No Kings protest tomorrow. You want it to be the biggest protest in the history of the country. Is there anybody who's not welcome at these protests?
Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Ezra just laid out the constitutional argument so cleanly that I genuinely don't know how you argue against it. Congress declares war. That's not interpretation, that's text. And what does Katie do? She immediately pivots to Obama and Libya, every single time. Here's the thing though. She's not wrong that Obama took military action without congressional authorization. That happened. Libya was messy, and the precedent it set was problematic. But notice what she's doing? She's using Democratic mistakes to excuse Republican escalation. That's not accountability, that's whataboutism dressed up as principle. And let's be clear about the Iran situation, because I've been following this closely. Trump reportedly authorized strikes that most Americans, according to actual polling, did not support. This isn't some fringe progressive position. The majority of the country consistently polls against new military engagements in the Middle East. Katie dismissing that as opinion when it's documented polling data, that's just denial. But the moment that really got me, she hits him with, "Facts don't care about your opinion energy," and he throws it right back. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Because she's been treating her foreign policy hawkishness as self-evident truth when it's actually a minority position. Most Americans don't want another forever war. That's not ideology, that's exhaustion. And then, watch this pivot. She immediately shifts to asking about who's welcome at the protest. Classic move. She can't win on substance, so she's hunting for a gotcha about the left being intolerant. I see you, Katie.
Oh, I think it's really, really important that this is welcome to anybody in the country who opposes monarchical rule and authoritarianism. And this is absolutely not a rally for Kamala Harris voters or for Democrats. This is a rally for Republicans and independents and Democrats and people who don't care about the political system, don't think it works for them. We actually don't have to agree on what the future policy agenda in 2029 ought to be, to say in one clear voice, in the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country, a country founded on rejecting authoritarian
Well, I'm
rule,
glad that we
can
agree
come
that the
together
founding
and
of this
say,
country was a good
no.
thing. Because it used to be that the
Right.
left thought we were a colonial power and that we hate America. But I'm just curious, does including everybody mean that you're welcoming groups like Communist USA, who has been at these rallies? You had the Democratic Socialists of America, who talked about violence against groups that they say it's necessary at some point. What does the training look like in terms of allowing these people into these rallies, if everybody's welcome?
Allowing people to exercise their First Amendment rights. Are you saying in order to exercise your First Amendment rights, you have to commit to a certain ideology?
I'm just curious who you're welcoming in, given that there are training materials from these groups that advocate for violence.
Oh, I want to be very clear. This is foundationally nonviolent. And that's not just me saying this. This isn't our first rodeo, Katie.
Great.
This is the third No Kings protest. We had 5 million people out last June. We had 7 million people out last October.
Yeah.
There are 3,300 events all over the country. So far, there have been no incidents of violence. I will tell you, I'm glad that you're worried about political violence, because on January 6th, there was a lot of political violence supported by the folks on your side. And I think that's right. I'm glad that you're bringing it up, though, because we do need to call out political violence.
And held in prison. So Ezra Levin, thank you very much for joining us and making your case.
By the president.
Because the justice system was tyrannical and overcharged most of the people for simple trespassing. Ezra Levin, great to see you. Great. Good luck tomorrow. Hope the weather's okay.
And there it is. That's the whole thing right there. Ezra just spent the entire interview making the case that this protest welcomes everyone who opposes authoritarian rule, regardless of party. And Katie tries to link him to communists. She literally asks about training materials for violence at a protest movement that has reportedly seen 0 incidents of violence across millions of participants. 3 protests, 5 million people, then 7 million people. No violence. And she's still hunting for the gotcha. But the January 6th moment? That's the kill shot. Ezra brings up actual documented political violence. People died. Officers were beaten. The Capitol was breached. And Katie's response is that the justice system was tyrannical and overcharged people for simple trespassing. Simple trespassing. Right. Because trespassing normally involves bear spray and zip ties and chanting about hanging the vice president. And here's what kills me. She acknowledges prosecutions happened and then immediately undermines it by celebrating the pardons. So which is it, Katie? Was the system working when it prosecuted them? Or was it tyrannical? You can't have both. You don't get to claim law and order while cheering when your side escapes accountability. This whole interview perfectly encapsulates everything. Ezra came with facts, with history, with constitutional arguments. Katie came with deflection and fear-mongering about communists. One person wanted to discuss democratic principles. The other wanted to delegitimize the entire movement. That's the playbook. That's always the playbook. Look, if you've made it this far, you clearly care about this stuff, and I need you engaged. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're doing this every week. And speaking of holding people accountable, I reacted to this Gen Z commentator absolutely dismantling someone over election conspiracy nonsense, and it's chef's kiss. Go watch that next. I'll see you there.